cycle. So which was actually the first cycle which we came across where we see phase change. Earlier when we talked about gas power cycles, so all the processes were in gas phase only. But in vapor power cycle or Rankine cycle, we saw that there is also a phase change involved for some of the processes. So similarly, we'll now talk about refrigeration cycles, and this also involves a phase change. So we'll see how it goes. So this is basically your syllabus. We'll talk about ideal vapor compression cycle, and using that cycle, we'll also see how to calculate COP, which is your coefficient of performance. Then we'll just list out some of the common refrigerants used for this purpose, and we'll briefly talk about other methods of refrigeration. So let us begin with the ideal vapor compression cycle. So similar, it looks very similar to Rankine cycle, but the cycle is in reverse. Or other way, if you remember or recall, Rankine cycle is going in clockwise direction. Clockwise means it is producing net work, while a heat pump or a refrigerator, it will go in counterclockwise direction. If you look at PV or TS plots, it is going in counterclockwise direction, which means that it will absorb heat, or in other words, it will absorb work and it will transfer heat from cold low temperature reservoir to high temperature reservoir. Okay, now let us look at the cycle, how it is made. So basically the first process is starting from here. So you have a compressor. You compress the working fluid from 1 to 2. Then that fluid is passed through a condenser. Okay, and in that condenser, it is subjected to warm environment, or let us say this is the outside ambient air. Okay, so you reject heat to the ambient, which is at a higher temperature in the condenser, and after that it is passed through an expansion valve. So we'll discuss what it does when we go to cycle, but it is basically, you can imagine that it is like a throttling device. So the fluid is throttled through the expansion valve, and then finally it comes to evaporator. So in this evaporator is where the refrigeration effect of refrigeration is filled, or you see that this is the cold refrigerated space. Okay, so this is the place which needs refrigeration, or this is the volume or space where heat is required to be removed. This is your cold reservoir, low temperature reservoir, from which we absorb heat, which is QL, and then the cycle will continue. So the net effect is that we are transferring heat from a low temperature reservoir to a high temperature reservoir with some work input. If we don't have any work, then it will violate the second law. Which statement of second law? Can anyone tell me? Two statements you studied in the second law, yes? You people are connected?
Q is equal to U plus W.
The Clausius statement.
Yes.
Yes, Clausius statement. So two statements we talked about, Kelvin Planck and Clausius. So Kelvin Planck was concerned with heat engines, and heat pumps or refrigerator, we refer to Clausius statement. So both the statements are equivalent, but they are stated differently using different devices. Okay, now let us look at what this cycle is doing. So let us start with the first process, which is 1 to 2 in compressor. So this is how your compressor work look like. So what W in is coming from the compressor. So you start with what is the state of fluid at point 1? Saturated, liquid, vapor, superheated, subcooled. What is that state?
Saturated vapor.
So at 1 it is a saturated vapor, and it gets compressed in the compressor. Basically we are doing some work on it, and then it goes to point 2. Okay, point 2 is at superheated vapor region, and this work is done isentropically. So the assumption is that the compressor performs work on the working fluid in isentropic process, isentropic compression. Now from 2 to 3, it goes, we assume that it is following isobaric heat rejection. Okay, in the condenser, we maintain a constant pressure. So in following an isobar, we reject heat and we reach to 0.3, which is saturated liquid. Okay. So from 0.3 now it becomes interesting. So if I go straight, it will be isentropic, but that is not what is followed. We followed this line from 3 to 4. So this line gives you is done in the expansion valve, or this is the throttling process, which is for which, as we'll see in subsequent slides. So for throttling, we assume that enthalpy remains constant. Okay, we'll talk more about it in a few minutes. Now the last process is from 4 to 1, which is actually the process we are interested in, where we remove heat from cold refrigerated space, and this is assumed to occur at isobaric conditions. So we maintain the pressure constant, and in fact the temperature also remains constant, as you can see in this plot, and heat is absorbed from the this space, and this is called evaporator. Okay, why can anyone tell me why this is called evaporator, or why this is called condenser? Any sense this name is making? Looking at this plot,
Change of state is happening, sir.
can you speak a little again? Your voice is not clear.
The change of state is happening, sir.
Yes.
The
So
vapor composition is increasing.
correct. So here we are having at 0.4 we have a liquid plus vapor mixture, but if we go on with this process, what we see is that at the end of this process we have saturated vapor. So 4 to 1 is done in evaporator, which means that whatever liquid was there, it evaporated. It gets evaporated here, and saturated or complete 100% vapor is there at 0.1. Similarly, if you talk about condenser, what condenser is doing, condenser inlet is at 2. 2 is a superheated vapor region. Now from superheated, it has brought it back to saturated liquid region. So it is basically condensing the fluid from superheated to saturated liquid state. So that's why these names are named so, because this is condensing fluid and this is evaporating the fluid. Okay, now let us look at another plot which is of interest. So as I mentioned, process 3 to 4 is throttling, where we say that H is maintained constant or enthalpy is held constant. So let us just plot the same process, same cycle in a pH plot. So you see, instead of volume, I have H here. So this is your first process from 1 to 2. Enthalpy is increasing. Okay, it is, although it is a isentropic process, but we are doing work, so which increases, temperature is rising. So because of that, enthalpy will, pressure will increase and enthalpy both will increase. So it goes from 1 to 2. So this is how you draw isentropic process on a pH plot. Now the second process is, okay, this is interesting. So you see, I mentioned that this 2 to 3 is an isobar. Okay, which means that pressure is maintained constant here, and temperature is varying, but temperature remains constant and inside the vapor dome. So because it is an isobar, it will look at it as a straight line here in pH plot. So P is maintained constant from 2 to 3, and in that process we are removing heat. Now we'll go from 3 to 4. So 3 to 4, it looks like a curve in TS plot, but since it is an constant enthalpy process, so if we are using H as a coordinate, it will become a straight line. Okay, and again 4 to 1 is a constant temperature, constant pressure process. Okay, so constant pressure is what we try to achieve. Constant temperature happens because it is inside the vapor dome. So this is what you can see is, again inside the vapor dome it has 4 to 1 is constant pressure process. Okay, any questions on this?
Sir, what is the process in 3 to 4 dash?
Okay, 3 to 4 dash is, suppose, okay, when we are talking about this last class, Weber power cycle. So for that cycle, all the processes, this compression and expansion were isentropic. So instead of going this way, if I have isentropic process, it would have dropped like this, and then it will be exactly the same as Rankine cycle, only in reverse direction. Okay, if you try to recall, but this is one major difference between Rankine cycle and vapor compression cycle, that instead of having isentropic process, I'm having isenthalpic process. So enthalpy is maintained constant, or basically this is called throttling. Let me see, I think next slide I will explain what is that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let us look at what is going on. So these are the two plots which what we discussed in the last slide. So we are interested in 3 to 4, this process. So basically what happens is that you either use some adjustable valve or capillary tube or porous plug. These are the common devices which are used to throttle a fluid. Okay. Now what happens in throttling is that basically you have a fluid flow and you restrict the passage. Okay. So the area suddenly drops and then it can expand again. So basically you have a constricted zone. Constricted means that you reduce the area and you allow the fluid, you basically force the fluid to pass through it. So if I have that sort of arrangement, if you are doing ideally, if you are throttling, then we assume that the enthalpy remains constant, or H3 is equal to H4. And similarly, if you expand for enthalpy, you can say that U3 plus P3V3 is equal to U4 plus P4V4. Okay. So, but the interesting thing here is that at point 3 we have saturated liquid, which is shown here, and at point 4 we have liquid plus vapor mixture. Okay, it is inside the vapor dome. So whatever average properties that we have discussed, we will calculate accordingly. Average of liquid and vapor. This will be straightforward. You can use the saturated liquid tables and you can get these values. And for this, we'll get an average. How we do that? That again we'll discuss. But this is the basis behind that. And what happens is that you are using a refrigerant here, which is a saturated liquid. Now a part of that evaporates. Okay, during throttling. Now this decreases your temperature and pressure. Temperature, pressure both are coming down, right? But enthalpy remains constant. That is the most basic assumption for a throttling process. Okay. Moving on. Now let us see how do we define the coefficient of performance, or COP. So this is the cycle. As we have discussed that for a refrigerant, we'll say that what is the desired effect is QL. If it was a heat pump, then I would write QH, but now it is QL divided by what is the net work input for that cycle. So again, I am writing here in intensive or specific properties. You can also write, instead of this, you can write capital Q or capital W. Since both are intensive, so that that is fine. Or otherwise, you can keep both as capital or extensive properties. Anyway, so what is QL? From this plot, I can see that QL is getting removed here. So I can say QL is the difference between enthalpy of fluid at 1 and 4. So this is what is written here. Similarly, for work done also, I can use enthalpy. It is work done is between 1 to 2. So enthalpy of fluid rises from 1 to 2. That is what delta H is being considered here. So as you will see, mostly for even for gas turbine cycle, Brayton cycle, we use enthalpy, and for last chapter, vapor power cycle and refrigeration, we are mostly concerned with enthalpy. So we will take H values for those particular points, and we'll take a difference that will give us either work done or heat supplied. So one interesting term I would just like to define. So basically, when you go to market, when you buy a AC, okay, so it is labeled as 1 ton, 1.5 ton, 2 ton. Anyone has seen that, or anyone remembers buying AC with
Yes, sir.
okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
this is how you define the ton. The AC is not, the weight is not 1 ton, but the heat transfer that is coming out from that AC, okay, that can result in freezing of 1 ton of pure ice at 0 degrees Celsius in 24 hours. So basically that AC, 1 ton AC should be able to remove latent heat of 1 ton of ice in 24 hours. Okay. So it is approximately equal to this much, basically 3.5 kilowatt. But the idea is that if you leave it for 24 hours, 1 ton of ice should be solidified. Okay, from freezing, you keep water at freezing temperature, then it is only about latent heat. So that much it can give. So that is how it is measured. So this is a standard or commercial unit where we talk about the freezing capacity or cooling capacity of that particular AC. Okay, so we have discussed about ideal. Now let us look at what happens in a real process. Okay, so let us start with 1 to 2. So this is ideally we assume this to be asentropic process, okay, or entropy should remain constant. But as you know from the second law, for real processes, entropy always increases, right? So instead of 1 to 2 remaining a straight line, it will shift a little bit towards right. Okay, so entropy is, let us say, slightly increased as we go from 1 to 2. Now, from 2 to 3, what is happening? 2 to 3, the fluid is traveling in pipes, right? So there will be some frictional loss or there will be heat loss with surroundings and irreversible effects. So these are the things which you actually see in a reversible cycle. Ideal cycle, we have a lot of ideal assumptions, but in real world, these are the things that take place. So from 2 to 3, we see some losses. Then from 3 to 2 dash. Okay, let me just give me a second. Hear it. Okay. Now it is looking better. Fine. So from 2 to 3, some losses are there. From 3 to, let us say, 4. 3 to 4. So it was supposed to like come down on an isobaric process. Okay, but let me get that pointer. Yeah. So from this process, the ideal assumption is that it comes down as an isobaric process. Okay, but what happens is that the pressure also, we also see some amount of pressure loss. It should have been like this, but it is actually decreased. So 4, which is supposed to be a saturated liquid point, it becomes subcooled liquid. And there are still little bit of losses after that. Okay, yes, I see. That's what I use. Some mistake is there. Okay, that is now fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, anyways. So at 4 and 5, we have subcooled liquid. Okay, as you can see here. So this was supposed to end at saturated liquid, but there is subcooled liquid there. And then again, from 5 to 6, this was supposed to be constant enthalpy, but there will be some losses. Okay, so again it goes from 7 to 8. So the idea is that for ideal cycle we have some assumptions, but finally when you go for a real or actual cycle, these are the principal factors which are responsible for the deviation. So you will see some frictional loss or heat transfer. There will be some heat loss or heat gain from the surrounding, right? And there will be some irreversible effect, as we have seen in this plot. So because of that, this becomes, sometimes it will become subcooled or superheated, and the refrigeration, this is actually not correct. So work done is actually more, or the refrigeration effect will be less than as compared to the ideal cycle. Okay. So anyway, mostly we'll look into numericals for ideal cycle, and if there is some deviation, that will quantify. Okay. Now these are the some of the commonly used refrigerants. Okay. So before you select a refrigerant for a particular device or a particular machine, a refrigerator, you these are the factors that you should be considering. So you should be you should take care what is the temperature of cooling space that you require for ambient environment, what is the temperature in the outside. Okay, and the refrigerant should be non-toxic, non-corrosive, and it should be basically safe. It should be stable and safe. And if you have high enthalpy of evaporation, what will happen? Anyone?
More heat can be expected.
So I need more amount of refrigerant or less amount of refrigerant?
Less amount of refrigerant. So.
Correct. So if we have higher enthalpy, so we need lower amount. Mass can be reduced. So that is what we will ideally prefer. And another very important consideration here is that earlier we have these refrigerants were very common. We have used in fridge or ACs, but these are found to be this CFC based refrigerant, chlorofluorocarbon based refrigerants. These are found to damage ozone layer. Okay, so now we are looking at hydrocarbon at CFC. So these are the newer alternatives, or mostly these are discarded now. So no one will use this type of refrigerant, which will damage because ozone layer is getting damaged because of this. Okay. So these are so mostly this is the most common one, R22, R134A. These are the names for refrigerants. Okay, so we'll see. So we have property tables where you can look at property of R22, R134A, and basically we look into at what pressure and temperature, what is the enthalpy or internal energy, and then we'll use that in numericals. Okay. Now for refrigeration, we have just now talked about vapor compression cycle. So this is the major or most common method which is used for refrigeration. We could also use absorption refrigeration cycles. We can use heat pump systems, liquid gas systems, or this is recently a lot of interest has been generated, evaporative cooling systems. So for example, you have desert coolers where you evaporate water and you generate cooling effect, right? One more interesting application is reversed Brayton cycle, or this is also called Bell-Coleman cycle or gas refrigeration cycle. So that we'll look into briefly. So what we do here is, if you again run this in a clockwise direction, it becomes a gas turbine cycle, what we have discussed. Now if you run this in opposite direction, anti-clockwise, then it becomes a heat pump or a refrigerator, and the net effect is opposite. So it is absorbing heat from a cold space and it is supplying heat to a warm or high temperature reservoir, and to accomplish this heat transfer, it needs some work input. So let us begin. So 1 to 2 is isentropic compression in this compressor. So in gas turbine cycle, when you are running for a power cycle, it becomes a turbine. Now it becomes a compressor. So we do isentropic compression here, which is shown here 1 to 2. So these are these two black lines, what you see, these are constant pressure lines. Okay, and we are plotting it in TS plot. So 1 to 2 is isentropic, so it is a straight line. Then we have isobaric heat rejection in heat exchanger. So this is your heat exchanger. Basically, this is what will it will dump your heat to the ambient environment. Okay, so this is a constant pressure or isobaric process 2 to 3. Now 3 to 4 is, it looks like isentropic process, which is there. It is isentropic expansion in the turbine. So instead of using a throttle valve, we have a turbine here, So we do isentropic expansion from 3 to 4. Okay. Now from 4 to 1, we have, this is where the refrigeration effect is shown. So we extract heat from a cold temperature body or cold reservoir, and this is from 4 to 1. This happens at constant pressure. So this line is for constant pressure. So we have isobaric or constant pressure heat rejection at the heat exchanger. Okay. Is this clear?
Sir, why constant pressure at heat exchanger?
So this is how the cycle is designed. So we want to maintain that. So if you remember, we talked about gas turbine cycle, power cycle, gas turbine power cycle. So that follows the same processes. So if you reverse that, so if you remember, we talked about constant pressure heat, constant temperature heat addition. Okay, let me open that. Okay, with that, this is the last slide. So we close this, and then we can talk about doubts. Okay, let me stop recording first.